Daniel brings up the conference configuration in the Big Ten once USC and UCLA join. Matt, have you given pen to paper in regards to how you see that looking, what your preference would be once those two make it 16 in the Big Ten?
Well, last week, and we had a great show with Tony Altimore, just fantastic guest, providing big picture perspective on various aspects of the realignment landscape. And one of the things that he hit on, and which I totally agree with, is that in these larger conferences, so the Big Ten and SEC have at least 16 teams, could be poised to grow to 18 or 20 in the next several years. We should now initiate conference semifinals. I don't know about quarterfinals, but at least for now, we should have conference semifinal games and then a conference championship game. Because with these larger conferences, of course, you're not going to be able to get all the marquee teams to play each other. And of course, as the people in the SEC know well, because Alabama and Georgia very rarely play in the regular season because you want to save them for the SEC championship game. It makes total sense. That's how you increase your college football playoff odds, by having an unbeaten Alabama against an unbeaten Georgia, or maybe one of those teams has only one loss. You get both of them in, as the SEC did last year successfully. So, because you're not going to have your elite teams playing every year, and of course you're going to have a geographical segmentation in your conference based on the national map, having a conference semifinal day, two marquee matchups with your top four teams, is just such a natural and organic way to have your elite big name schools playing every year, but not within the original regular season schedule. It would happen through a semifinal structure. It just makes so much sense. I mean, Fox being able to carry a USC Michigan Big Ten semifinal, and then an Ohio State Wisconsin Big Ten semifinal. I mean, look, Fox Sports just going to rake in the George Washingtons and the Andrew Jacksons, all the dead presidents, with a lineup like that. Now, of course, that means that you're not going to have your normal 9-game conference schedule. It means you'd slice it down to 7, and the conference semifinal day, you would have other flex scheduled games throughout the Big Ten, for the 8th game. So, flex scheduling, which again, BYU and Coastal Carolina, they proved forever. They shot down all the arguments about how it was so logistically difficult to schedule games, in a relatively short time windows. Flex scheduling needs to become more a part of college football with these mega conferences. And so if you have 16 or more teams in a conference, I think it's definitely time to start the era of conference semifinal games. Like, it's just such an obvious windfall for the television networks and for the schools involved. I mean, you want that leading into a 12 or 16 team playoff. I mean, a lot of bucks are going to be made on that. And, I'm just waiting for that to happen.
Yeah, folks, if you put the math to it, just the larger the conferences become, the more probable the scenarios in which you cannot reasonably determine a conference champion, or there are pitfalls in trying to determine that without expansion of the championship format to include up to 4 teams. I would hate to go beyond that myself. I think it then becomes kind of watered down and confusing for people that, we're still 2 weeks away from a conference championship game, but we're playing for the conference championship, and we're in 8th place in the conference, and semifinals, sure.
Yeah, we don't need to discuss quarterfinals. Let's just get semifinals first, see how that goes. I mean, in the SEC, just imagine this. You have a semifinal Saturday with Georgia against Texas A&M in one semifinal, Alabama against Florida, or Tennessee in another semifinal. Again, just major bucks waiting to be printed by a television network. And, it just adds even more to what, the SEC championship game was an undeniable commercial success. Roy Kramer's idea with, going back to the first game, which had that amazing ending with Antonio Langham intercepting Shane Matthews for the winning pick 6, Alabama, staying alive in the pursuit of a national championship. Just that perfect scenario the SEC hitting the jackpot. Here we are 30 years later. That game is a roaring commercial success. So now you stack on championship semifinals a week before. And again, you don't have Georgia playing Texas A&M regularly. In a semifinal structure, you would get that a lot more often. Same for Alabama and Florida. And so, because of the understood need to not have these big name teams play each other every year to maximize your playoff odds, well, the semifinal format in a conference system, that really is the way to marry both worlds. You get more elite matchups every year, but you're still preserving college football playoff odds, because in a semifinal setup, your top two teams would not play each other. They would have to win into an SEC championship game. And of course, if they both get there, having won a semifinal, a high level, high value game, the loser of the SEC championship game would still be in a very good position to make the playoff, especially if, Mark, as we've also discussed in previous weeks with Tony Altomore and others, you're very likely to get a 12 or 16 team playoff starting in 2026 after the current 12-year playoff deal ends, because of course the SEC and Big Ten are going to want as many at-large seats at the table as possible, and they have the most leverage in all of this. So that's where I see everything going.